Hey guys, happy October. It is the 2nd of October, so I thought that I would film my September wrap-up and my October TBR. Let's just get into it. So the first book that I started reading in September, well, that I finished in September, I got it in July. Of course, it came out on the certain character's birthday, was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I got this on pre-order. I was in New Hampshire and had it sent. I had to go on and change the address that it was sent to, and we were all sitting in my grandparents' living room, and all of a sudden I got the notification from Amazon that was like, your package delivered. I looked out of the window and I saw it on the porch, and I literally ran. Nobody knew what was going on. They were like, what is Hannah doing? Where's she going? And this came, and I was so excited. And I read it in like 2 days, just over a weekend that we weren't doing too much with. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. If you guys don't know, I really like Harry Potter. My Harry Potter shelf in my living room is up there, and it fills the entire top shelf of the wall of the living room. And so this is a great addition to that, but it was really interesting reading it just because it wasn't all J.K. Rowling's writing. It is written in the form of a play, so even though it's already a kind of smallish book, it was even smaller just because all of it's just the stage directions and then the lines. So it was a little bit harder to get attached to the characters because we were following Albus and Scorpius and a few of the other characters that are introduced in this book and at the end of the 7th book, but because we only get the stage directions and what they're saying, we don't get into the emotions or into the mind of the characters as much, and I was a little bit disappointed in that. And also, if you guys don't know about the all of the rantings that's been going on the internet with how they had Hermione and Ron and played that out throughout the book, I agree with that. But of course, I'm happy to get anything from J.K. Rowling. I'm so excited for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and yeah. So that was the first book I finished. The next book I finished is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, because my best friend started reading it and could not shut up about it. And of course, if you guys follow Sasha, if you know anything about BookTube, Outlander is of course a huge thing. So I got into that. Of course, it's a huge book. I don't have a copy with me. It's actually my friend's that I borrowed, but that I finished it so that I could get through that before Empire of Storms came out, because I was waiting for Empire of Storms because Throne of Glass, and I was able to finish it fairly quickly. I think it only took me like 4 days after reading the first chapter and then not wanting to read for like the whole month. But I did finish it, and I gave that a 4 out of 5 stars. It was really, really good. I definitely enjoyed it, but it, of course, was long, and at the end I kind of feel like a lot didn't happen. Like, there was so much that did, but for the amount of book that we had, like, not a whole lot actually happened. But it's very well told, and I would definitely recommend it if you wanted something, or if you're in a book slump. It's easy. It kind of reminded me of reading Name of the Wind, because it's just a wonderfully told story, and it's not necessarily action-packed, and they don't have like one climax because it is so long. It has a whole bunch of different events that go and go and go, but it is wonderfully told. You don't really get tired of reading about Jamie and Claire, but yeah. The third book I finished in September was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which is also cool because my name's Hannah. But my mom and I, when I was in Alaska, when I was back home helping them move in, we took a trip down to Anchorage. If you guys don't know, I am from the middle of Alaska, and going down to Anchorage is a trip. It's like a 7-hour drive to visit my little brother who goes there, and we wanted an audiobook that we could listen to. So I was definitely looking at the historical fiction, something that my mom would like, something that I would like, because I know that she didn't want to listen to a huge fantasy or something in necessarily the YA fiction. I mean, of course there are amazing stories, but I was trying to cater to my mother. I ended up picking The Nightingale, which is a wonderfully told historical fiction about World War II. It actually follows 2 sisters in France, and we follow their story of how World War II and like Hitler's regime and everything just takes over in France, and it's so amazing. The book is so heartbreaking and emotionally draining, but it's so worth it because it's just told beautifully, and you get to see different aspects that you don't think about in the war, and especially in France. I had never thought of France necessarily. When you think of World War II, you just think of Germany, and then you think of D-Day, when the US, of course, I'm from America, so we go and save everybody. But it was so cool seeing the other sides of it and some of the inner workings of the rebel movements and everything. Oh, it's so good. So I give that book definitely a 5 out of 5, and listening to it on audiobook was so much more poignant and made it so much more real, and it was so hard getting through some points when we were driving that we sometimes would just have to like stop and couldn't speak and would maybe be crying, but we're still trying to drive. And it was so good, you guys. So the next book in September that I read was The Assassin's Blade, and I don't know why I hadn't read this yet. I've had it on my shelf since I bought the second one, Crown of Midnight, and got this, so it's been sitting on my shelf, and I've kind of been hoarding it so that I could have it in between the publication dates for each one, so that I could like visit Selena and everybody when I was missing the world, and I just never got around to it. But of course, Empire of Storms was coming out, and you need to read this book before you read Empire of Storms. I mean, technically you don't, but you're missing so much and all of the backstories and certain characters if you don't read this. So you definitely need to read this. So I sped through it. I didn't have the physical copy, so I got it on e-reader, and I read it in one night. And because I mean, it's about the same size as Throne of Glass, but it's like 4 different little novellas that are in this bind up, and it's so cool that you finally get to see all of like the little comments or the little backstories that Selena had thrown out in the first 2, 3, 4 books. So I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. And the next book that I read after Assassin's Blade, because I was waiting for Empire of Storms, story time. Okay. So I pre-ordered Empire of Storms. Super duper excited, waiting for it to come out. Was anticipating forever. When I first pre-ordered it, I sent it to my home in Oregon, which I was going to be at because I was taking summer session. But 2 days afterward, I was going to Alaska, and it wasn't going to be here because Amazon, now the pre-orders don't come the day of, they come like within the 2-day shipping, and so I had to change it to my address in Alaska, and Alaska doesn't do 2-day pre-day shipping, or Amazon Prime shipping. They do like 7-day shipping, so I had to wait so long, and my friend here was reading it, and she kept Snapchatting me. I was like, Hannah, this book is destroying my soul, you have to read it, and I couldn't handle, like, I was trying to read Outlander and distract myself with us moving in, and it was just, it was so stressful that I didn't have the book yet. And so finally, it was coming. I got the update that it was coming the day that my mom and I left our house to go down to Anchorage. So we were going down there for 4 days, and it came the day that we left. We left in the morning. We even waited until like noon because other things happened, but I was waiting for the book, and somebody even came to our mailbox, like as we were loading up the car, about to get out, somebody came to our mailbox, dropped something in it, and then went off, and I was like, what? I looked at my mom, we made eye contact, she knew that I was waiting for it. I sprinted to the mailbox, was ready, and it wasn't it. It was just some letters. And so I like hung my head and walked slowly back to the driveway. My mom burst out laughing. I was like, oh, Hannah, it doesn't have her book. I was like, you don't understand. I need it. And so I had to wait another 4 days, but then I was able to read The Assassin's Blade and listen to The Nightingale. So I wasn't suffering, but I still was, and I have an issue with reading the ends of series. I haven't finished quite a few trilogies, and that is because whenever I want to finish a book, if it's been like a year since the publication, so I just want to get back into the world that they have, and I like to reread at least the last book. For example, when City of Heavenly Fire came out, I had to read City of Lost Souls because it had been like a year since I had read anything in it and wanted to remember some of the details and everything. So even when I got back, I started reading Queen of Shadows, which is the next book that I finished. Of course, I've obviously read this, gave it a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads because Sarah J. Maas, and so I reread this. Really glad that I did because I didn't remember quite a few of the details. My friend and I have been talking about it. We couldn't remember why Chaol was going to the southern continent. There's definitely a reason why he does, and I needed to remember that at the end of this book. So that brings us to our next book. So the final book that I read in September was Empire of Storms, obviously, which destroyed my soul, and just I am now just thrown of glass trash. Like, everything on Tumblr and Instagram, follow like every single thing that I could. There are no words to describe it. I simply can't. Gave it a 5 out of 5. It still has me like in its clutches. When my mind is wandering somewhere, it just goes back to this world and I can't escape it. So September